Morning, Chris. Chris, a couple of weeks ago, you did a video and you talked about post-secondary education in Alberta and the problems that we're facing. And the other day, somebody said to me, Chris is the shadow minister with the Alberta Party for Municipal Affairs. What on earth does education have to do with municipal affairs? So I thought, well, that's a really good question. So I'm going to ask you to answer that question, Chris. What does municipal affairs have to do with post-secondary education?
Oh, well, good morning, Tron. First of all, I think Premier Kenney and his cabinet have been watching a few too many episodes of The Kids Are All Right, because in Alberta, the kids aren't all right. And that's a proven fact. Over and over again, now we're hearing about the younger generation, and I've lost track of them. I think it's now Alpha and Generation Z or Z or however you want to say it. My kids remind me TikTokers, what. And look, I need to learn all the terminology, but they're not all right, Sean, because they're leaving. And Saskatchewan is becoming a little more appealing, or Ontario or Europe now, where you can get a house for €1. My son told me this morning, he's 12, he learned about something from the internet with Hawaii, how you can go live there. The climate's really great, and I guess you can just grill your food on the beach for free. So he thought that sounded like a great idea. These are not great ideas long term for our kids. They sound very romantic and idealistic, but they're not going to work long term. And sooner or later, a bunch of leftover geologists and engineers, that graduate and got their tuition paid for from the government, because that was one of the columns on the spreadsheet where Jason Kenney said, we'll pay for that part of your post-secondary education. But mental health professionals, doctors, nurses, people that run different businesses that may not be in oil and gas, we're not going to cover their tuition. So hopefully their parents can foot the bill, or they'll get a scholarship from somebody. So it's not working, Tron. It's not working. The kids are not all right in Alberta. And you know what happens when the kids are not all right? The families are not all right. And you know what happens when the families begin to leave? Well, let me think. There's a whole bunch of for sale signs on the lawn because people are leaving the communities. And guess what happens when there's a whole bunch of for sale signs on the lawn? Oh, there's a whole bunch of office vacancies, and there's a bunch of stores closing down at the mall, okay? Because people are leaving. They figure if the government can't prioritize post-secondary education as the number one most critical economic development piece in this province today, there is nothing else that we should be putting our government dollars to more than post-secondary education and our education system in general to get the kids to post-secondary. If we don't have kids graduating, if we don't have families staying, and when they graduate, they want to return or stay here in Alberta and use their careers because they're valued as members of our communities, members of our municipalities, members of our society who are contributing back in whatever form that is, be it in the trades or in professional designations or careers, paths that follow different ways. All of that is part of building a successful community. So how does post-secondary education gutting affect municipal affairs? I think the answer is pretty simple, John. It affects it exponentially. If the kids are not studying here, if the kids are not staying here and they're leaving and the families are leaving, the kids are not all right, Tron. And the Premier knows better. We have an ESG department secretariat. Oh my goodness, what a title to put on your business card. Okay, thankfully we don't have to do it bilingually here in Alberta, or what, it'd take up half the card in announcing the ESG secretariat, says the Premier. My goodness, where do you think we teach environmental, social, and governance? Where does that come from, Tron? From the hallowed halls of CAP? From Ovintiv? Is Encana focused these days on ESG, Tron? Is that where we're learning this all from? No, it's nonsense. We learn it from our post-secondary institutions. And what happens? Those now translate into ESG. I'm all for ESG. Okay, but when you're telling me that you're gutting departments at the university, I think we know one of the big ones. It's going to start with an E. It's the environment. Because what kind of jobs will those be in Alberta? We don't need all of that kind of stuff. We've got a secretariat. S for social. Well, where do you think kids learn about that kind of stuff, right? From the hallowed halls of one of the companies downtown? Governance? If we had governance in a lot of our companies, we wouldn't be having this discussion. The fact is we don't have any of this, and we need to educate for that. And once we do, they stay and they begin to bring the 21st, 22nd century idea of Alberta to the table. And that's how we're going to start bringing people into this province. And that's how the kids are going to stay. And yes, the kids at that point in time will be all right, and their kids and their kids' kids. Because that's how we have to start thinking about this province, John. We can't just keep thinking about this in terms of today. And now what are we doing? We're blowing billions of dollars to send people back to the investment bankers to say, oh, we got ESG now. Come on back to Alberta and pour your money into it. Do you think that these people in New York and London and Toronto are that stupid? Do you really think that investment bankers really are that dumb? They see droves of kids leaving this province, but they want to come back because we put ESG on the door outside the office to say we've got a secretariat. It's not working, Tron. And when that doesn't work, and when the post-secondary education is gutted, it has a dramatic, exponential impact on the communities where we find those institutions. That is a proven fact. Can't dispute it. Go look it up on Google and it'll tell you all about it. Okay, when post-secondary institutions fail, the communities where they are located fail. And that doesn't mean we all have to be getting PhDs, right? I had a dream of getting one and I don't have one, okay? And part of me wishes that I still have more years ahead to do it. Maybe I will one of these days, okay? But that doesn't mean that I don't encourage my kids and my grandkids to do it. Doesn't mean that I encourage the kids that are outside this window at the school just down the street here to do it. Let them do it. And if their vocation, calling is in the trades, to be part of building a better Alberta, then let it be. I could not support that more, but that's where we need to be pumping our money into. And when we do that, our municipalities and communities will thrive in this province, Tron. And then the investment dollars will begin to come in. And then we can build the better Alberta when we realize what our priorities are. And this government is not prioritizing for the future. Once again, it's lining the pockets of its buddies so that they can go to London on junkets and Toronto or wherever they're going to go post-COVID or in the middle of the night when we can't see them boarding the plane. Somebody's shooting a YouTube video of them cheating. Okay, they're going to go, and that's what they're going to do. They're going to blow their money instead of spending it on what counts. Students, families, keeping them in this province to build a better province for all of us that's focused on the future. Focused on the future. And we're going to train them in our post-secondary education institutions. They're going to go on to be valuable members of this community and our societies, and they're going to help us build a better province. And that is not, absolutely not, my dear friend, going to come from gutting post-secondary education and putting a $1.9 billion contingency fund. We can't trust this government with $1.90, Tron, let alone 1.9 billion. And that it should be going directly into building the future and building our communities through those post-secondary education institutions. And we're not doing it because we're letting this government play hide the soap with our money. And it's got to stop. And it's got to stop now. And we need to start prioritizing what's important in this province, and that is the future of our communities, the future of the students, and the future of the families that fill up those communities.
Chris, Municipal Affairs is not just a couple of words. There's a whole lot of meaning behind that. And I really appreciate that. You know, a few years ago, there was a mayoral candidate that we both know, where people talked about politics in full sentences. And it sounds like that's something that you believe in as well. So I want to thank you for this, Chris. Thank you very much for
Well, I mean, I just care about our communities across this province and the post-secondary education institutions that feed them. You know, well over, I believe it's 26, Trond, you know, post-secondary institutions scattered around the province. That's a lot of people, right? You think about the hundreds of thousands of people that are directly or indirectly involved in that whole, you know, if we want to call it sector of our economy. It's massive, Trond. And when we cut it and when we send them running to Saskatchewan or going to BC or wherever else they want to go, we shouldn't be doing that. We just have so much potential. And you're right. You know, I know, you know, I'm guilty of putting the period at the end of the sentence, as we say, you know, but that's the way I think. We just, these little sound bites of, you know, it's got to stop because it doesn't speak to the reality, Tron. Doesn't speak to the reality that families and communities are facing and our students are facing. They're left with huge decisions now. This COVID thing has been very, very difficult on our student population. And to gloss that over is just not something we can do. And when they hear them, when they graduate, they don't even know if they can get their education paid for, or if it's going to be affordable, or they're going to be tuition increase. You know, they've got enough to worry about now, Tron. And you know, having an official list from the government of who the winners and losers are, you know, when you graduate out of high school, and this is the career path you should go down. You know, there were some governments we certainly don't like to emulate that did stuff like that back in the Second World War and beyond. And I remember as Canadians, we fought valiantly against those kind of systems. Okay, and I see that now coming in. I just find it, it's unbelievable to me, literally and figuratively, of every sense of that word. So I apologize. Now I've just made more sentences, and you asked me to complete it. But anyway, Tron, thanks. You know, I have a passion for this and a passion for this province. I love this place, and I don't want to see another person leave. I want to see more and more and more people coming here. And the only way to do that is by building strong post-secondary educational institutions inside of our communities and working together to grow this province, not to diminish it.
Chris, thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Because, you know, usually we get sound bites, and I don't want sound bites. I want information. So again, I'm going to say thank you. And
Sure.
we're going to talk some more this afternoon.
Okay.
That's good for you.